In the 1940s, the scientific experiments conducted by the Nazis still send shivers down one's spine even today. Hundreds of thousands of people, including Jews, Romani, and homosexuals, were mercilessly killed by the Nazis, but for some, a swift death meant being fortunate. In brutal experiments conducted in concentration camps like Auschwitz-Birkenau, where thousands of prisoners were used, a new dimension of cruelty and brutality was added by the experiments conducted by Joseph Mengele, dubbed the Angel of Death by the Nazis, especially on twins. Joseph Mengele's name is likely remembered by those familiar with our content on the worst people in the world. He did not take the title of Angel of Death lightly, much like Hitler. Serving as a doctor in the military, Mengele had a single desire, just like Hitler, to create a flawless Aryan race. In pursuit of this goal, Mengele primarily targeted twins. Whenever he saw twins among Romani and Jewish people, he rejoiced as if he had found gold and quickly initiated experiments. According to records, Joseph Mengele is held responsible for subjecting thousands of twins to ruthless experiments, excluding those he sent to the gas chambers for their deaths. Twins who managed to survive Mengele's experiments and lived to tell the tale reveal, with details shared years later, how terrifying Nazi Germany truly was. If you wish, let's take a closer look at the experiments conducted on the twins and their purposes. Mengele's primary focus in creating the Aryan race was on eye colors. For him, a perfect race meant having blonde hair, colored and large eyes, fair skin, and tall stature. Mengele would examine the eye colors of child prisoners brought to the camp, set aside those with colored eyes, and attempt to change the eye colors of brown-eyed children. Jonah Laux, a survivor rescued from Mengele's experiments, was taken to the camp at the age of 13 to 15. When brought to Mengele's room, Laux describes what he felt with these words: "I was looking at a wall made entirely of human eyes. These eyes, resembling a butterfly collection, seemed to be staring at me, and overcome with fear, I fainted." Jonah and his sister were naturally placed in a small wooden box during their initial test, where doctors began regularly administering painful injections into the sisters' backs. Jonah states that the reason for conducting this experiment was an attempt to change the eye color. In another experiment, he recalls, hundreds of twins were injected with a virus named Noma. Due to this virus, gangrene developed on the faces and genitalia of the children. Jonah mentions that as a result of this experiment, many children died from high fever, and some, trying to escape the pain, were killed by ruthless officers. One of the most horrifying procedures that Mengele performed on small children was conducting painful surgeries without anesthesia. The ruthless doctor, seeking methods to separate conjoined twins, attempted to do so without anesthesia, stitching their bodies together if they were born separately. During the surgeries, many children fainted from the pain, and some even died. As bizarre as it may sound, Mengele attempted to connect the veins and organs of 2 Romani children from their backs. The twins, enduring all this agony for 3 days, succumbed to gangrene and bid farewell to life. Gender reassignment surgeries can be successfully performed in today's world with significant advancements in technology and medicine. Unfortunately, the same situation did not apply to the 1940s, and such surgeries resulted in brutality. Jonah, who managed to survive the camp, mentions that adolescents who had just entered puberty were subjected to gender reassignment surgeries. Mengele attempted to perform these surgeries by castrating boys and trying to attach their removed genitalia to females. Naturally, these surgeries ended in failure, costing the lives of young individuals. Jonah describes how he endured the same challenging procedures every day from his own perspective. "I would wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, dress my siblings, and then wait ready for the doctors to take us. We would be examined in massive rooms, measured in height, and undergo X-ray scans. All these checks were done while we were completely naked. It didn't matter if the weather was cold or rainy, nobody cared. They would constantly measure my mouth, height, and the size of my skull, comparing them to my twin sisters. Every 3 weeks, we would also regularly give blood samples. They would take blood from our right arms and inject us with viruses whose names we didn't know in our left arms." Mengele didn't only focus on creating the perfect Aryan race. Occasionally, he engaged in scientific experiments aimed at giving German soldiers an advantage in warfare. Among these experiments was determining how much blood humans could lose before death. Jonah witnessed a small girl collapsing and dying on the ground during the blood sample procedure performed every 3 weeks, as an excessive amount of blood was taken from her tiny body. The excessive blood withdrawal was not a mistake made by the doctors, it was a deliberate act instructed by Mengele. Thanks to the unnamed little girl who suffered in the camp and died, Mengele learned how much blood a person could give before dying. For Mengele, wanting to mix different genes, referring to Roma and dwarfs meant weakness. Trying to understand whether a child born from the union of these two races would be weaker or stronger, Mengele forced people into non-consensual sexual relations without their consent. Modi alone, just like Jonah, experienced Mengele's experiments as a child but still managed to survive the camp. In later years, he shared some details that remained in his memory from those experiments. When I went to Auschwitz, I was 9 years old. I don't know the exact reason, but they had brought dwarfs to the camp. There was a man named Levi, who was partially paralyzed in his arms and legs, so he couldn't move as he wished. Dozens of children subjected to the experiment were brought into a gigantic hall. In the middle of the hall, there was a Romani woman ordered by the soldiers to lie down, and Levi was placed on top of that woman for them to engage in a sexual act. The soldiers had warned that they would shoot anyone who refused to watch. That's why all of us had to witness this scene.